guess I'm muted. I need to also.
Awesome. Are we live?
Yeah, I just need to.
So we are live?
We are, but my camera isn't working.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. This is an exciting one. Sorry we're a little bit late, but it should be worth the wait because we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. First of all, how you doing, Louis?
Pretty alright. Well, it seems like my camera is not working for some reason.
Okay, well, we'll just have to imagine you. Maybe we'll have Dali create a rendering of you, or maybe Stable Diffusion. But as long as people hear you though?
I think so. I think people can hear me, but they can
Alright,
only see
cool.
you though.
Okay, wow, I'm so popular today. Well, anyways, today we have some exciting stuff to talk about, and can people see my screen?
Yeah, they're seeing your screen now.
Alright, cool. So the big thing here, guys, is like if you want to follow along, you can go to plasmo.com/p/changelog. And when you go to this URL, it should take you to this page. Now, the cool thing about it is you can also see all the other ones. So all the ones we had from the past are all here. So if you want to see what we did, the week of November 24th, you can do that. We only started doing this about around that time. So the historical ones aren't here, but you can take a look at the engineering log. It's linked in the landing page, and you can see more of those. But we decided to do a little bit of a different structure, at least for these change logs, and use something like Notion. So that's what we're looking at today. And so just jumping right in, let's talk about 50 extensions. So what is this? Well, we want to show how strong and how powerful not just the Plasmo framework is, but also the thing that it sits on top of, right? Chrome extensions and browser extensions in general. We want to show like how cool they are and how all sorts of different ways to use them. I know that we have a lot of different use cases on the Chrome Web Store and also just on GitHub and so on. But what we want to do is we want to use them in different ways, or potentially ways that just help us in our day-to-day, either personally, like what we're going to see today with a Twitter playback speed, or in an internal capacity where we will see with the Vercel redeploy extension that we built. And then at the end of the day, it's also about having fun, right? Like extensions make things more fun. They allow you to customize in ways that you couldn't before, and with that also comes customization in a fun manner. So we'll be talking about that as well. So to start off with, like the goal here is pretty big. We plan to build and publish 50 extensions by March 31st of this year. That means that we have to publish a new extension every day and a half around that time frame. So every changelog, every week, every day, you'll see more and more extensions being rolled out with Plasmo. So let's just jump right into kind of what we've built. The first one is called Twitter playback speed. Now this we built this because like I was looking at this SEO course. It's by this guy Jordan O'Connor, and I thought it was pretty good. But like all things, with lockdown, I just can't watch content that's not on 2x speed. It's just impossible for me. That's why in-person conferences are always so tough. So this extension, what it does is it'll automatically create this plus and minus, and sorry, this thing is loading. Let me just wait for it to load a little bit. So it'll create this plus and minus on every Twitter video. So when you click on plus, it'll increase the playback rate you see here. When you click minus, it'll decrease it. So now you can control playback rate, which actually doesn't exist on the Twitter video client. And that's one of the things that we think about a lot at Plasmo is there are all these websites you use every day. You should be able to tweak them as much as you'd like, and we call this last mile customization. The idea that like the developer who developed the app, developed the website, what have you, they had their own requirements, they had their own specifications. Maybe they talked to even thousands of users. But at the end of the day, if you're building anything consequential, you'll probably have many more that you've never talked to, and each of them might have their own ways of using your app or website or what have you. So what if you gave the power to the user rather than the developer to actually customize that last mile? And that's kind of what we're doing here, where I don't think Twitter doesn't know that this is a useful feature or anything like that. Maybe they just don't have time to implement it. They don't have um, the sort of like people power to do so. So it's up to us, right, as users to take step and actually build out this feature. And in some ways, this is similar to open source software, where if I'm working on a project, I prefer for it to be open source, because then I can actually go ahead, and if I don't like something or if I want something to be different, either I can take a look at how they implemented it and figure out, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I won't touch that. Or I'll fork it, and then I'll actually have my own version where it has all the things, all the bells and whistles that I want. And that's another version of this concept that we call last mile customization. So the idea behind like Chrome extensions to us is it enables this for not only open source software but also closed source. Um,
Yeah. Before you go to
cool.
the next
So
one, there is a
yeah,
question
yeah.
from
I
the
just
audience.
wanted to ask you, like, do you have some questions, Liz?
Yeah, there's some question from the audience. Right, so
Oh,
AV12,
amazing.
AV12 asks us, what's the most popular Plasma extension right now?
Well, so the most popular is this one with one user. The reason why that's the most popular one is because we just published it. So we haven't really published any browser extensions before. So this is kind of like our foray into it. That's why this one's the most popular. It's because it's the only one published, and it has me as a user. So if you want it to be a little bit more popular, go ahead and install it and download it, and let me know what you think. Um,
I think
yeah.
by Plasma extension, I don't know, what does he. So I might reply to him and ask him to clarify it. What do you mean by. Yeah, what do you mean by Plasma extension? Do you mean by extension made with Plasmo? Or extension that Plasmo made internally or publicly?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Um, well, you don't have to reply to him, right? I think he's listening. So,
Yes, true.
but yeah, super cool. Yeah, when Avery replies, we can chat more. Do you have any questions around this extension, Lewis?
Well, I helped build it, so you know. um, yeah. So question regarding the extension itself, not so much, but question about the Twitter itself, I do. What else can we improve with Twitter? Based on
I
your,
mean, there's so much, right?
I'm not a very avid
Um,
Twitter user, but you know, I know you are using it quite a bit.
yeah, I mean, there's a ton to improve. I think video is just one of them. Search. They hired GeoHot to fix search. He was their intern. He quit after a couple months. Wasn't able to achieve the goal, but he did spur some activity in terms of people building Chrome extensions to fix search. So there have been, like, I don't know, tens of extensions built to enhance search, because search, when you look at Twitter, search actually has like pretty advanced filtering and stuff like that. So like, Google has the same thing. Like if you put things around quotes, that means that you want to search that literally. Like if it's a phrase, you want to make sure that that phrase exists on the web pages that you're searching, things like that. In like the security realm, we call those dorks. So like Google dorks. That's a concept where you can apply things like site colon and then specify a website, and now Google's only going to show you the search results containing that website, things like that. So Twitter has that as well. I actually have a blog post up where I talk about all the different dorks that Twitter has. Now the thing is, like, these are pretty hard to find, and you have to either find blog posts like mine, or you have to go to the advanced search panel on Twitter to figure this out. But people have built extensions where when you click on this little search Twitter input, it'll display these prominently to you, and then you can kind of like, if you ever use like Elasticsearch, where you can like specify different sort of keys and values. That's exactly how some of these extensions work. So that's a big one. The other one is sort of like people have built extensions to get rid of this little check mark. So if you don't like actually getting rid of the tweets from the checkmark users, so it'll completely hide all checkmark users. So that's like a little fun one. But yeah, there's a lot more to it. Like, I mean, you could totally build some sort of extension where, let's say you don't want to see spoilers, right? There's a most recent Game of Thrones episode that you're really into watching, and you don't want to see any tweets pertaining to that, or maybe there's a recent like MMA match, and you don't want to see spoilers because you follow a lot because you're a fan, right? So obviously you're going to follow all of these accounts. So what if you build an extension where anytime, let's say MMA or the fighter or whatever is mentioned, it would just not show that tweet until you say like, hey, actually, I have watched this event or I have seen this show. So those are all the different things you can do. I mean, that's just not even 1% of what you can do. It's really powerful.
Yeah, I think it can be even more powerful if imagine the search, right? So like you can add those search syntax, um, like as a full power user, right? But you can also think about a way to incorporate the syntax with the context of the current user themselves to pre-filling out the search, right? So it doesn't mean so you so the user can actually leverage like even natural language search, right? They don't have to even think about um, the tagging so much.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, when it comes back to like Plasma and stuff like that, one of the things that we're planning on building out this year is an SDK for these kinds of websites. So when I was building this out, right, like Lewis had to help me a lot because getting those plus and minus buttons in the right place at the right time and figuring out how to query the video and things like that, these are all things that are super annoying. Like people shouldn't have to deal with that. And our motto with the framework is we want to solve we want you to focus on your product, and we don't want you to focus on the intricacies of building browser extensions. We don't want you to care about selectors and stuff like that. You should focus on like, imagine there was a function saying like Twitter dot get videos, and now it gives you all the DOM elements with those videos, and then you can say like inject into like uh, inject into this like bar at the bottom of the video, like where it says like 60K views and stuff. Um, so those are all things that can be possible if you had an SDK for this website, and that's something that we potentially want to offer, like Twitter, LinkedIn, so many different websites that people love building extensions on. It's just too hard sometimes to do all that. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think we
Cool.
move on.
So next up is the Fidge toy. So Louis, you want to talk about this one? Let me play the video while you talk about it.
Yeah, so one of the problem I have when working on working and just coding a lot, right, is that I would have a browser open, and we usually have a new tab open a lot of time, right? And they usually show ad nowadays, especially when you use Brave. It just show ad like crypto ad. The problem is I don't really care too much for these ads. I kind of want to have some fidget toys to play around with to just jog my memory, or just like some kind of a. Sometimes I get a bit bored from coding, so I kind of want to do something. And a lot of times that turns to playing a whole I don't know, going going to my gaming machine and maybe play a whole game or something like that, right? But that is a waste of time. A lot of time. I just want to have a little bit of thing to like kind of distract me a little bit on the side, right, while I work. So I built this thing called Fidget Toy, and what it is basically it's a way for me to also play around with animation and also actually SVG drawing. I did some kind of math. Actually, I got to revisit some trigonometry with this with the fidget spinner. Actually, the whole fidget spinner is drew with plain SVG, not by hand though. I actually used several algorithm to draw it. So the whole like the whole um, basically the shape of of that spinner can be kind of mutated by a civil variable. Yeah, so it's pretty fun. But like yeah, it's a fun project that I built, and then now it's basically my new tab for every single browser I have right now. So every time that I put a new tab, I have this fidget spinner I can play around with. And also the cool thing is,
What do you plan on adding in here?
maybe a timer, maybe an infinite timer, so I can click it and go up. Maybe more scoring, more gamification in the future, though, right? I think at the moment the fidget spinner does have the key purpose to be just the fidget, and it worked well. And it's also very, I would say, the design is very simple, and it make my new tab less cluttered. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. But if as I'm planning to make more new tab page actually, yeah. So eventually I might ship a new tab suite.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool beans. So we got Fidget Toy. It's pending review, so you guys gotta wait like for that to be done, and then we'll actually post on Discord server when you can access it. Um, if you don't want to wait, you can use Itero to download this right away. Let me show you guys that option. So Itero, and just to talk about Itero a little bit, Itero is our staging environment for browser extensions. So over here we have like our team Plasmo, and you'll see all the different extensions that we've kind of built. So Digitoy is one of them. Let me go ahead and open up the install page. So over here, like if you want to use this extension and you don't feel like waiting for the Chrome review process, you can actually go to this URL here. We'll post it in the Discord. And then you'll be able to, once you follow these instructions, you'll be able to actually like install this extension from our store, and you'll be able to get updates. So when Lewis has other ideas around like potentially adding that infinite timer or any other idea like that, you'll automatically receive those updates. You don't have to worry about like dragging and dropping a zip file or something just because you didn't download it from Chrome Web Store. So take a look at that. If you want to use this for your own projects, like if you want to serve your own extension to beta testers, that's primarily what this is used for beta testers, early adopters, investors, people that are on your team that need the latest cutting edge version of your extension, and you can't wait for the review process every single time you make an update. You can use Itero to do that. We have a GitHub integration and all that other fun stuff, so that on every push, you actually push out your extension to all your beta testers instantly without a review process. So take a look at Itero if that sounds interesting. And if you want to use Fidget Toy, check out this link to do so. Cool. So moving on, Fidget Toy is a fun one. So we have a one that helps you out in your personal life. We have one that's fun, and then finally we have one that helps in the professional setting. So in this case, like we have this thing called Versal Redeploy. Now this Chrome extension is pretty cool because at Plasmo we actually use Notion as our CMS. So if you don't know, CMS is a content management system. It's a way for you to write content and then have some way to publish it to your viewers. So, for example, the New York Times, right? When they want to publish a uh, newspaper like story, they actually have their own custom content management system. And you can imagine theirs is quite complicated because let's say you're someone that's kind of writing a story, you manage to like write the story. Now you want to get it published. There's probably multiple steps to do so. An editor needs to review it. Potentially, a senior member of your team needs to review it, and so on. And then once they all got the go ahead, now the button to click publish has been enabled, and you can actually click that publish button. That's kind of what a CMS is. Um, we use CMS here at Plasmo using Notion. So we have a database on Notion called BlogPostDB, and this contains all of our database, all of our blog posts that we've written, the tags, who the author is, has it been published, what's the date, and so on. It's just the metadata. And then when you click on the actual page, it'll take you to a Notion page that we can write, because we really like the Notion UI. So we use the Notion UI to actually write our blog posts. Now, the cool thing is, like, if you notice, this page is a Notion page, right? So you can tell, like, it says try Notion on the top right. There's like a search. This UI feels very Notion-like, and so on. But when you actually go to the blog post, let me show you an example. This doesn't look like Notion at all, right? Yet on the back end, this is all hosted on Notion. And we were able to do that via this idea of, whenever we do a build of our Next.js app, we actually query our Notion database and automatically put all the things in the right place so that these blog posts are generated. Now, the tricky thing with that is, when I'm editing on Notion and I want to publish, when I click this published check mark, that's not going to trigger a build on Vercel, which is our provider that we use for building. So there, it becomes stale, and we have to wait for, like, redeploy, either by pushing an empty commit or something like that, or you can go on Vercel and click the redeploy button. And we found that super annoying. So we built an extension used internally where we create this little redeploy button on the top right of Notion on this page. So that way, when you click redeploy, it's actually going to go ahead and redeploy the most recent Vercel build. And that's going to fetch Notion. It's going to do all the fun stuff. And then when all that gets done, we'll have the most recent blog posts up on our blog. So this is a really neat tool. We even have it on the pop-up here, so you can click redeploy, and it'll do it. And yeah, it's really awesome. And I think this kind of shows the power of how you can use extensions to improve internal processes. Where if you tightly integrate an extension into your internal workflow, like over here, I imagine we're maybe one of, even, let's say it's even like 10,000, right? That's not of using like this like blog post Notion CMS kind of thing. Even 10,000 people isn't a lot, right? And potentially people don't use Vercel and so on, so it becomes a lot smaller and smaller. But because it's so easy to make this kind of extension, it's a no-brainer. Even if, let's say, like 200 people in the world use it, if you found useful, then it's already gonna be incredibly useful. Like, if it took you a day to build it, but then it saved you like 2 months in the span of a year, or something even less than that, like a week in the span of a year, it was worth it. So this is just an example of that. Yeah, that's that. I think that basically covers the 50. Louis, you have any thoughts around the 50 extensions that, like, I haven't covered, or you want to talk a little bit more about it?
I think you covered pretty well. Yeah, we I think the goal of the 50 extension is really to explore the whole. I would say we want to explore the entire space, but also the integration between extension and app itself, web app.
Yeah, no, definitely. As we build more of these, we'll get even better, right?
Yeah.
We'll get even better at building Twitter extensions.
Yeah.
We'll get even better at building new tab extensions.
So Vinny was asking how many extensions you guys already developed.
We got 3 so far. We started on Monday.
Yeah.
You should see more coming soon. We have like a landing page thingy that we built as well. It's not ready kind of for public consumption yet, so you'll see that probably next week, but it should be a good one. Cool. So, Louis, you want to talk a little bit more also, kind of shifting gears, talking about the framework. So, you know, we build all these with the framework. So let's talk about, like, how we fix the framework based on our dog fooding.
Yeah. So actually, can you zoom in a little bit? Um, so there was a live reloading kind of race condition that we've been having with the framework for a while now. I mean, I think it's still around actually. So this bug's a little bit flaky. Yeah, it's still quite a challenging bug, but I think that at the moment when as we developing and fixing extension that we built internally as well, um, we we cached, yeah, we started profiling all of these kind of incidents, and profiling also the uh, the uh, the time when the updating, the run the runtime updating is triggered on both sides, because extension development has so many sides to it. You have the browser runtime, which is run by the browser. You have the service worker runtime, which is a separate kind of instances of the browser. The browser spawn a new instances, a new process to run the service background basically. And you have the dev server, which is the Plasmo dev server that's serving file and also sending change kind of diff to reflecting on your extension. And basically the framework has to reconciling all of these events and juggling them and somehow inject it into the browser, which is very somewhat which is pretty flaky. The injection is very flaky too. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. The browser runtime is especially so right now the one that we can control, we can tap into but cannot quite control are the background service runtime and the browser runtime itself. We can tap into them through WebSocket, and we can try to send event and try to tell the browser to do something. But there are times when it doesn't do it because there are actually an error upstream, right? So anyway, the effort so far has been that previously we have a separate watcher that watch our build directory, but we noticed that the build only get rebuilt once after every kind of every change event. So basically we have two watcher, one from a bundler, and one separately watching this directory called build directory. By the way, is this too much detail?
I think if you want to include that detail, we have to add way more context.
Yeah, maybe not. I think the
Well,
context.
so if people want to know more about this, we actually talked about this on a previous stream, where we actually went into quite a bit of detail, looked at the code and stuff. So, if you guys want to learn more about kind of what Lewis is talking about here, check out. I can't remember exactly what stream it was, but there was a stream where we talked about live reloading. It might have been actually the stream before this one, the one last week. And yeah, we actually went deep talking about that.
You could also look at the PR too. The PR has a lot. I mean, the PR has the code in the detail surrounding the changes, right? Because the framework's open source, so.
Yeah, and that's the PR to fix live reloading, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, people take a look at that if you want to know more details. But all in all, suffice to say, like, this is pretty complicated stuff, and it's interesting, right, Lewis? Like, all of these different tools that we have for building browser extensions, all of them are using web. Like, they're using the web as the context, right, or like the runtime.
Yeah.
But they're not really considering the full scope of what it means to have a browser extension runtime. That's kind of what you're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite tricky, and I think we're making good progress. We just got to keep doing it because it's complicated. It won't be solved overnight, but if you found issues before, you should see that your issues are at least a bit better now than they were before,
Yeah.
and definitely a lot better than they were about a month ago. So we made some good progress. Still a lot of room for improvement, but we're getting there. So that should be a good one.
Yeah.
And yeah, the CSUI is the one that's especially challenging, just because that's the focal point in which all of these different runtimes that Lewis talked about meet. Right? You have the web, you have like the background service worker, you might have the main world, and then you might have the content script world. You have HMR running, like, uh, but then we haven't gotten that to work. So then it's just live reloading. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts. So, um, we ask, like, as you're finding like these issues, report them on GitHub. If you find a thread talking about it, click on the thumbs up saying like, "Hey, I'm affected as well," and and if you can help us reproduce your error, if we can't reproduce it, then please do that. Um, cool. All right. Well, so that's the CSUI runtime improvements. Next up, we got Cradle uses Plasmo. So this is a blog post that we published. We haven't posted this yet on any of the social media. We wanted to have an exclusive launch here on this stream, and this is a big one because Cradle is quite a complex extension. I mean, I think their extension is around like 20 megs, so it's a pretty sizable extension, and they chose to trust us to use uh, to actually develop the extension using the Plasmo framework and also using Plasmo Itero.
Wait. So
I'm not
this.
sure if they use BPP, but
So
yeah,
just,
we can reach out to them.
so before you go to the article, can you explain what Cradle do?
Oh yeah, I was gonna explain it. It's over here. Um, so Cradle is this company. It's pretty cool. It's a crypto gaming wallet. So oh, I think they made their landing page better. They redesigned it, which we will talk about soon with our landing page. But yeah, basically Cradle makes it super easy to play crypto games. They even actually are building their own controllers, like physical controllers for games. They're doing all sorts of really fun stuff. Um, so you can see here, like, they have an SDK, a version of a game on a chain, and they're even building that physical controller I just talked about. But yeah, they're making a bunch of gaming tools, and specifically the big thing that Cradle builds is a crypto wallet. So when I mentioned that 19 meg Chrome extension, that was their crypto wallet. Now, the really cool thing about Cradle is they have fantastic, and I mean really fantastic onboarding experience. So if you're building an extension and you want to see kind of what the world class of onboarding looks like, definitely check out Cradle. So uh, you should see like a really great onboarding experience. They open up a new tab. They tell you how to pin the extension. They do all of the things that you need to do if you want to have your extension like be successful. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. But going back to this blog post, I sat down with Moise. Moise is CTO and co-founder of Cradle, and we talked about kind of how they got started, what Cradle is, what does their team look like, what were they doing before Plasmo, how do they kind of tackle the challenges that come with integrating with a framework like Plasmo. Um, in the blog, Moise talks about how the docs, like reading the docs more thoroughly, is beneficial and will help you kind of as you onboard onto a totally new framework and sometimes totally new way of thinking about things. Um, and the other thing that I found very interesting about what Moise talks about is he mentioned that a lot of times, like, people that have already built Chrome extensions kind of have their own way of doing things, kind of like, oh, if I want to create a new tab page, this is how I do it. But when they come to Plasmo, they apply those same kind of principles, but Plasmo is opinionated, and that's why it's so powerful and so easy to use. So we have our own opinions about stuff, and when those clash, that's when the developer needs to kind of read the docs more thoroughly and at the end of the day, like actually use the Plasmo features because it's just going to save a lot of time. So I thought that was interesting. And then finally, like my favorite part about this blog post is actually talking about Itero testbed. Now, Itero is a thing that I talked about before on the stream. And so at Cradle uses Itero, and one of the things that they talk about, like Moise mentions, is how difficult it is to zip their Chrome extension and send it out to all their beta testers every time they update. And if you can imagine, Cradle is a pretty fast growing like company. They're like startup. They constantly iterate. They constantly improve their extension. Like you can build an extension like this if you ship the extension once every like 2 days or something. Like that's not a thing. So they needed a way to make this process seamless. So they chose Itero to do this. And with Itero, they didn't have to worry about sending zip files and like telling their beta testers, hey, can you please drag and drop this new version and so on and so forth. Itero just took care of all that for them. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I think just to close this off, like this one question and answer, I thought was really great. I asked Moise, what would it mean to Cradle if Plasma ceases to exist? And he said that it would slow them down dramatically with their future roadmap because they entrust us with handling the browser extension engineering side. Like you can think of us as your infra team. Like when you use the Plasmo framework, when you use Itero, you have just hired a team of people that are experts at browser extension infrastructure, and we let you focus on the product and we handle the infra side. That's the main goal of our company. So I thought this conversation was really great, and really a huge thanks to Moise for like speaking to me about this and doing the interview. I thought it was very fascinating to see the world of the other side, just because like Louis, we've been building this sort of these sort of products, you know, like, but we're not building them in a vacuum, right? We actually have people that use them, and they've seen really great results.
Absolutely. By the way, uh, I I just had a thought about the blog. I feel like was the thumbnail generated with AI art with Ali?
This thumbnail, no, it was a stock image.
Got it. I think we definitely should do a Plasmo plus Cradle logo kind of image. You know, is that I think it's a standard for most case studies to do that.
Yeah, no, that sounds fun. Yeah, we can have like a little, um, like our logo, their logo, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, just a side thought as I look through the screen share.
Yeah, nice, awesome, cool. So Cradle uses Plasmo. Node 18. Louis, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, actually, it's really just internal infrastructure. We upgrade all of our stuff to Node 18, and so far nothing break. So let's hope.
Love to hear it.
Let's hope that is the case for most people. We've seen that a lot of people had trouble trying to use Plasmo with Node 18 and Node 19, and it appeared to me there's actually a problem when if you're using Node.js with Brew, there is a slight issue, especially if you're trying to contribute and you're using Brew with npm with Node.js. Node.js Brew has the store placed in a very weird area that is not conforming to some of the package like global linking registry. So for people who want to contribute or trying to use the Plasmo framework locally and using Node.js with Brew, be careful about that. You might want to switch to NVM actually, because NVM would use your local file system and not the Brew file system. Like the Brew has its own kind of virtual store because Brew is a store itself. It's a package manager themselves, right? So it has its own kind of file system to handling all of the dependency and so on. But because of that, it also messing up the pathing of if you're using basically you're using a package manager on top of another package manager. And so the pathing is now have to be the pathing is has gone through like 2 cycle of repathing, and so the tooling apparently doesn't work, or at least for PNPM, the global linking does not work with Brew. So you will have to you will have to switch to NVM, or maybe using PNPM directly with Brew, that might help. But so far, so one issue that I've seen thus far is actually with Sharp. Sharp is the image Sharp is the image manipulation library that we use to resizing and also creating the grayscale images for development for the Plasmo framework. And the latest version is being built with I think an old map binary, I think, or something along that line that somehow doesn't work with latest Mac. So that
Yeah,
way,
I've seen this when I was building as well.
yeah,
Because I
apparently,
use a Mac.
yeah, apparently the sim linking could not find the file or something like that, or it just doesn't link them correctly, and so downgrading it apparently it worked just fine. And we don't use any advanced API for the newer version, so we just downgrade it for now, and then we'll wait for them to fix it upstream. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So before we close off,
Mm-hmm.
it's not on here, but I wanted to mention it. We did a huge redesign of the landing page. We heard your feedback, and we took it and we improved it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So here is what it looks like. If you want to get started with Itero, you can do that here. Otherwise, you can view the docs to learn more about our entire platform. You can see all about the development framework, how you can build your browser extensions with zero config, and talks about all the cool stuff the framework has. If you want to see examples, you want to look at the GitHub, I want to look at the docs for the framework, you can do that. Talk about our staging environment, Itero, talking about what you can do with it, how you can update with every push, and then how you can get started. Talking about auto-publish. This is our GitHub action that lets you publish things, publish your extension to all the different web stores that we integrate with. We have browser extension tools. If you want to convert from MV2 to MV3, you can click here. If you want to generate a CRX key, you can do that. If you want to store things, you can use Plasmo HK storage. So we have all these different kind of tools here. We have a book here. So this is an amazing book. If you haven't seen this, you should get the book. You can click here. This is all center stuff we always had. Pricing section has been improved a lot. All the content is the same, but just the overall UI has improved dramatically. So we have a new pricing section. If you want to get started with any of these, you can click the buttons. And that's basically it. So just in general, a lot of the UI has been improved. Spacing has been improved. Like things have been more polished. We have like some nice gradients, all the other fun stuff that you can expect from a nice landing page. But yeah, that's kind of the other thing I want to talk about, because that was one of the things that we worked on this week.
Yeah. A lot of stuff. Oh damn! Someone say F. I think frame dropping. I think we've been frame dropping. Oh lord.
Okay. Well, hopefully the
frame. So about 10% of the stream.
Okay, it's all right. Like everything in this doc. So if you missed anything, you can take a look at the doc and see kind of what we talked about. Or if you missed the landing page section, go to plasma.com and take a look at it. Cool. All right. Well, with that, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week around same time, maybe a little bit earlier. We usually like to do this a little bit earlier, but today it was a little bit different. And yeah, take care.
Yes, sir. Take care.